Good evening. Happy Memorial Day Monday in this May 29th, 2017. I hope all is well with you and that you have enjoyed your family time, your rest time, whatever time that you've had over these past couple days. So we are winding down in our conversations about mental wellness this month. So let me share first. Share this. And then we could jump right on in and get started. All right. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to share it on my page. Okay, so I don't know. Here we go. Me and this lovely technology and trying to follow all my homework assignments that have been given to me as engage in what social media looks like today in 2017 and how our relationships are manifested through the use of technology and how you secure and validate services that will also equally be important to you. So thanks for bearing with me as I shared and got a chance to connect it however it's supposed to be connected, because that's the way it's going to be. So it is Monday, May 29th, 2017. And we are winding down the Let's Chat Awareness mental health moments conversations that have been hosted by Butterfly Love and myself, Mary May, throughout the month of May, which is Mental Health Awareness Month, along with a couple other acknowledgments. But here we're acknowledging mental health awareness. And tonight's conversation is about the tainted intentions of your tongue. Let's say that again. The tainted intentions of your tongue. So, probably like, what does that mean? Where does that come from? What things are going through your mind? Well, if you haven't joined a conversation with Butterfly Love before, please know that it is open for exchange and dialogue. It is open for your feedback. It is open for courageous conversation, because this conversation didn't just get pulled out the sky. This is something that, has been observed, has been seen as a concern, and want to ensure that people kind of realize how it's connected to mental health, how it's connected to the intentions that we may start off with may be humor, but what we leave someone with may be harmful. So before we jump directly into it, I would like to say a heartfelt thanks to all who have served and acknowledged this Memorial Day holiday, to the families, the individuals, everybody who is responding or, receiving the acknowledgement. Happy Memorial Day from Butterfly Love. So, hey Leslie, I see you. Thanks for joining the conversation this evening and commenting. So, the challenge I would give is coming from the perspective of just general conversation and talking to people, or general conversation when when I'm meeting someone and doing like a general assessment and trying to figure out, where are the challenge points, where are the good points, when did it work well, and The most difficult thing that we have in our society today is giving a compliment. Not only giving a compliment, but even receiving a compliment without it being a haste, or without it being some negative anchor, or without it being something that's holding us back. So, yes, we are talking about managing your tongue, but then also managing how the sarcasm manifests into so much more. So, the challenge I give you as we start out, and I'll be reminding you of this challenge hopefully several times throughout our conversation this evening, is when is the last time that you gave a heartfelt compliment to someone you care about, or even to a complete stranger? Now let's think about that. When is the last time you gave a compliment to someone in your household, your significant other, your child, someone who you work with, someone who's in your space often, or a complete stranger? And the reason is that variation, because the complete stranger may be someone who needs that support and that boost, because you never know what someone is going through. But also people who live within your space or work within your same space, they also need a compliment too. Are you always coming to them and coming with a list of I can'ts, or what's the negative thing, or saying stuff with a little giggle at the end that's kind of like a dig? Like, our project is due in like a couple hours. No, you didn't do anything to it. Like, how do you know that they didn't do anything? Did you say good morning? Did you say, how are you doing? You set the tone already to put that person at a disadvantage because of how it is that you chose to utilize the narrative that came from your heart, utilizing your tongue. So like the language that you had, the way in which you said it. So even preparing for this, it was like, holding my tongue isn't the problem. It's my face that needs deliverance. When I saw that in preparing for this conversation, people who know me as Mary May, in whatever capacity outside of professional, they know my face expression gives everything away. And my intention is kind of like I might be processing, I may be receiving the information, but think about if someone said something to me that was really harmful, or that really bothered or altered my energy in some particular way. Not only has it been said, but now you got my body language, my face, feeding into this sarcastic comment that has been put out into the space with the intention of maybe making light of a situation, or intention of inquiring about something, but because the face expression, the body language, the tone that it may have been stated in comes in a certain way, you may be causing some emotional harm towards the person who is the receiver. So when I thought about like ways to define a sarcastic tongue and kind of make it very, very simple, these are some of the things I came up with. And I do have notes, so forgive me for looking down, but I wanted to ensure that I got the specific information to you so that if you are checking your invoice, something that we talked about earlier in the month, your invoice of wellness and how it is that you may need to shift your narrative, you will be able to say, okay, hey, wait, let me take note. This is something I need to do different. Or wait, let me consider this. Or even pay attention as a post-it note reminder in your upcoming communications with other people. I mean, like, okay, wait, I listened to this video from Butterfly Love and Mary May, and I didn't realize that I engaged in this behavior all the time. Again, going back to the challenge. When is the last time that you complimented someone who is near and dear to you, or a complete stranger? So here are some things about the sarcastic tongue. The sarcastic tongue is that when it comes to a compliment, it's usually easier to come up with a dig, something negative, something that we don't like about a person, something that bothers us as far as a pet peeve, way before it comes to a compliment. Way before it comes to something that's going to be of value that we're pouring into the person. We usually want to take from and have a subtraction rather than pouring into them positivity and so forth like that. So, sarcastic tongue. Tearing of the flesh of emotions, like you making a cutting remark. You're polluting the atmosphere with negativity. Like you just thrive off of being negative towards other people. Sorry, I saw that. I was like, my chair had me all the way down. You want to pollute the atmosphere with like negativity, because negativity gets like, snaps, or negativity, keeps you elevated. But in order to keep yourself elevated, you have to put other people down. Do you think about like some of the encouraging posts or the things that you intend to be an encouraging post that comes across as, in order to lift up people, you have to put somebody down? Is that your true intention? Or is it just the way that your narrative is within every interaction that you do, that you end up missing the mark, that you're tearing the flesh of emotions? Instead of showing people how to build themselves up, in order to build yourself up and to build your audience up, you're building them up from a place of negativity and hurtful place. And the challenge is are you acknowledging that you're coming from a hurtful place? Now, granted, we may have had scars to get us to various challenges or various superior moments in our life, but the superiority comes at a cost when, in fact, you have to pull someone else down. So, more definitions around a sarcastic tongue. Is usually the brain's natural defense to the less intelligent. Or if you know that you have more education or more skill set than the other person, then instead of saying, okay, let me understand what your baseline is. What is your Maslow hierarchy needs? If we may even go from that, just like, what is your basis? What is the skills that you know? And then what are your goals in which or where you're trying to strive to? If you take that and you say, oh, well, you don't know how to do anything. You are just the worst social media person ever, or you are the worst encourager ever. If that's the space that you have to come from, that means you have to elevate yourself through like a sarcastic or negative comment, then your aggression becomes polluting the atmosphere with negativity. And it's like you're doing it overtly. Like it has to be loud. It has to be seen. It has to be a negative dig. It kind of involves the obvious verbal irony achieving its effect by generally shaking the opposite of what is meant. So it heightens the insult. So your intention no longer becomes a compliment. It becomes an intentional insult. Always having the one up instead of creating that balance that occurs in your relationship. And when it's a couple's relationship, oftentimes these are moments of sarcasm is used when there's something else that is being masked. There's something else that you may be upset about or need to have a conversation about. But instead of doing that, you will just come up with some kind of sarcastic comment. And if your partner pays attention to when this theme or when this recurring behavior happens, then they'll begin to realize, hopefully, you'll have a courageous conversation to say, okay, you know what? I notice that every time I'm trying not to come with anything that may be recent or personal to anybody who's watching, but every time that I have appointments that go over, you call with a certain tone or you call with a certain level of aggression and you say it's sarcastic, but it's a repetitive tone. How is it that I could be better in being responsive to you in that? Because I don't like how that makes me feel. Like it's an insult to my time management and I guess to yours as well. So, let's have that different conversation. Because at some point, if you don't have the conversation, it's going to come up into your list of all the wrongs that you do. And the sarcasm will be the way that it comes out into its nice little package gift. But it's a package gift that is going to hurt if we don't unwrap this gift. So if we don't acknowledge and we don't unwrap this gift, then again, we're challenged to compliment. Again, we're challenged to look at, okay, what's my role in this exchange, or do I play a role? Because you don't always necessarily have to play a role in someone feeling like the irony of how to use language and how to use their narrative. So let's be clear. It's not always a mutual give and take. It's not always an exchange. However, if the person comes from a place that they have to validate themselves by causing harm to you physically, emotionally, or with this intentional tongue of being sarcastic, then it's possible that you need to do a reassessment on who is in your energy space. And if in fact they need to be in your energy space, because if the tone, if they say no harm, but what I'm about to say, but let me tell you da 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 da, or I don't mean this to come out in a certain way, but this is what it is. The sarcasm that comes after that, or the comment that comes after that, is really what they mean. No matter how they say no harm, no foul, it's truly what they mean, and they don't know any other way to kind of package it and say it to you. And or they may package it as a sarcastic comment, and you never catch the fact that it's a pet peeve or something that's interrupting your pattern. So in looking at what people are saying and then they're laughing afterwards, you got to think about how is it that they could deliver it a little bit differently, or in fact if you need this person in your space. One of the ways to know if they're polluting the atmosphere is the vocal inflection when they say stuff, or what is weighing heavily on their heart that they can't even in that moment come up with a compliment. Anybody looking so far, have you come up with what your compliment could be to your significant other or to a stranger that would be a change or a shift in your sarcastic remarks or anything like that? I know one of the sarcastic remarks that I saw something related to it earlier in my social media about people using their turn signal when they're driving. That on a day-to-day when you are driving and people not using their signal can really like shift your energy in a lot of different ways, because you're like, okay, you didn't know you was turning down this street like way a couple blocks back, that you could have communicated differently. You might end up saying some other words other than that, but just thinking about the ways that people passively do certain things. So sarcasm can be a sharp and bitter or cutting expression or a remark that is made that transmit verbal aggression. I mean, like verbal aggression, like, aggression is like you grabbing somebody, you're, applying your hands or applying some type of energy, like even if you're working out in the gym. But do you ever think about the flip side of verbal aggression and how it could be packaged in another way? This sarcastic tongue and how it impacts an individual, you never know what people are going through. And that's the reason why if we shift and think about the ways that we can give a compliment, you would build your toolkit in such a different way of encouraging people and not coming from an ill heart, an ill mindset, an ill narrative that you're now pouring into other people. So if you're pouring into other people the positiveness, you are stopping the sarcastic comment, be it humor or not, because sometimes humor is the packaging of a mask of another situation that you may need to talk about. So again, using couples just as an example, but it definitely can go between parent and child. It can go between you and a coworker that you either been working with for a long time or getting to know how it is that they exist in certain environments. You create that variation, but you have to kind of recognize, okay, what do I trigger this person? Do I cause them to need to have a mask on when they're talking to me? What is it that we could do differently to have a better way that we communicate with each other? Because if it's purely, like if you said, I'm not trying to offend you, it's purely intentional versus it was not my intention. It was not my intention means it clearly was not my intention. However, if you say, if I said anything to offend you, you know that you said something to offend that person. Otherwise, you wouldn't be putting a post-it note on your narrative and on the things that you're saying to them to say, if I said anything to offend you. Because where did that energy come from? Where did you get the idea or the thought that they may have been offended? Was it their face expression? Was it their reaction to something that you said? Because people's body language, people's tone, they usually respond to what it is that you give out. Hey, Reese. So you said you really need to work on your sarcastic tongue. So, tell us when's the last time you gave somebody a compliment? And what was the compliment? Leslie, you too. When was the last time you gave somebody a compliment? And what was the compliment? Was it someone who you knew? Or was it some complete stranger that you came across? Because, it's important. It's definitely important. And while you guys are coming up with that response, and I know it's easier to think of the cutting remarks. It's easy to think of when somebody was driving and cut you off and probably all the adjectives that you said then. But when is it that we give a compliment? And before I go into like the intentional ways to correct and flip this could be a mask that you carry without really knowing that is indirect, intentional, unintentional bullying. Did you hear me? This is indirect, unintentional, direct yet indirect bullying. We hear the word bullying around lately. We hear the word bullying around lately, and we think probably immediately of only children being impacted. Children are definitely impacted from sarcastic remarks because they dwell and think about what it is that's been said, and they don't really have the toolkit to kind of decipher between if it's the right thing or if it's the wrong thing. Should they focus on it? Should they not focus on it? However, we oftentimes are bullying people and not even realizing that just from a simple word of dishonor or discord or how we tear each other down is manifesting a way of harassment, if you want to use that. That's the old word for bullying. Harassment, intentional, like balance one power over the other person for whatever reason. You begin to play the cards and shift it in a different way. And shifting it in a different way doesn't always mean that it's with an intention of a kind heart. So let's see. You said Farisi said, my mom, you told her she was an awesome mom. Yes, we got to treasure those people who are close to us. And oftentimes our connection to the people who are the most close to us, because they have seen us in our most vulnerable moment, they may judge and they may say certain things that make us just want to just chop them all up. But you got to show them and let them know at every moment possible, even if it's, and one of the tips that we're going to share is leaving like a note card or sending a thank you note to them that they randomly don't even expect, but I bet you it'll be a level of appreciation. So Leslie, you said that yours was a stranger actually in the supermarket today. You know what, Leslie? You're like a bundle of joy all the time. So I could imagine, but I definitely know some of the things that ruffle your feathers too. So Reese, you a bully? Didn't think of it, huh? You knew you were sarcastic. Maybe. You knew that you used sarcasm as humor in conversations because we do that so nonchalantly. We don't even pay attention to some of the sarcastic comments that we say. We just kind of throw them out there, drop them into the universe, and then walk away. Not even taking inventory to know if, was it polluting the air? Was it truthful, helpful, or necessary to make that comment? That's one of my butterfly love things, when we're trying to resolve conflict. And if you're trying to resolve conflict between you and a couple other people, how is it that you can play the part and be more beneficial to not only you, but two, how you're going to resolve the conflict. So, yes, little butterfly, you can be sarcastic as well. And I think that sarcasm is a way of general just conversation. So let me not say that every sarcastic remark in your narrative needs to be altered, but think about the intention of your sarcastic remark and how it may leave that other person when you are sharing it unknowingly to what their challenges may be. And not knowing what the challenges may be could be from the people who are within your own home, because sometimes that's where we have the most difficulty communicating our needs and communicating the imbalances, the injustices, the things that we need to do different. But then even in the workplace, we often have challenges there too, because, people who are least connected to us tend to get the least amount of sarcasm until we begin to feel comfortable enough to just say whatever is on our mind. We often probably would engage in the challenge of giving more compliments to the stranger in the supermarket, the stranger on the subway or the train station, in different ways. But it's a mask. If you want to function and function, let's do this. If you want to function with alternative facts of who you are as your true representative self, then be sarcastic. Wear your mask. It is a defense mechanism, and sometimes because we are defensive, we become reactive. And us being reactive, we may react with that direct intention to harm someone else. And then later we may reflect and say, well, why did I have to be so aggressive towards this person? Or why did I need to be, why did I have to say that in that particular way towards that person? So watch your vocal inflection, the ways that your heart may be heavy. Pay attention to when it may be best to not even have a comment whatsoever about what it is that you're currently experiencing. Because if you come with energy that's not positive and someone is provoking or trying to pull you out and pull you into a conversation, and you already know from your platform and from your scope of reference, and you having the post-it notes of whatever your narrative is, you control when you use the tongue and when you don't. Just as you control if it's sarcastic, if it's a mask, if it's a defensive mechanism, if your heart is heavy, or if your heart is light and you just have this giving spirit of, how it is that you want to encourage others, you control the impact on who's on the receiving end, handles that, and their emotional wellness garners and responds and reacts accordingly. Because again, to the person that may be sitting across from us, to the person who may be on the couch looking at TV with us, to the person who's working on a project, and we're working on a project together, sarcasm is going to come. But you have to be mindful of how can we repackage it? How can we make it in such a way that it's not harmful? It's not adding to probably an already challenging day or a moment that the person may be having, that now not only are they taking whatever pollution that they received before interacting with you, they're adding that on, and depending on their coping mechanisms would depend on how successful that they can be in not reacting, but taking that in and then acknowledging that they're being bullied and harassed by you. Was it your intention to do that? Probably not. Probably didn't even think about sarcasm in this way, especially in the capacity of how it could be bullying. You didn't think of sarcasm in the way of how it could be a mental health moment. But the mental health moment is that people dwell on the negative. And as long as you dwell on the negative, you give it power. And giving it power tears you down. And what do we say? The sarcastic tongue is a tearing of the flesh of emotions. It's a cutting remark. Do we want to keep that pattern going? I don't think so. Most of us really, really don't. So let's jump into what are some intentional acts of kindness or some intentional acts of how you can correct a situation when you have realized that your sarcasm has gone awry and gone into like another set of energy. So you can smile more, and smiling more makes you approachable. That if someone has had an unsettling interaction with you, they can know, okay, well, they're smiling. Maybe I can have that courageous conversation to let them know that X behavior didn't set with me well, or could we have another way that we communicate how we're going to meet this deadline on this project, or, and it's not to say that people are oh so super sensitive. They're not so super sensitive, because back in the day, I'm not going to say how many years ago, but back in the day, people weren't as sensitive, but they also did not necessarily always have all of the competing agendas of stress that we have now. They didn't have the PGW with that messaging, or PICO, or the electricity, our children, our safety always being questioned as we go through the community. They didn't have all of these competing agendas. So in doing that, it's like, how do we garner our tongue to not be harmful to other people when maybe we're not in a great space? So it's like keeping your thoughts to yourself. Hey, Miss Lourdes, thank you for joining. So let me jump in, okay? So smile more. Hold the door for someone. I know I often joke about, and these are the people who really, really talk to me on a day-to-day basis, I guess, about Club Wawa. And I call it Club Wawa because no matter what Wawa you go to, it's always a lot of people. But the thing that I love about Wawa is that people always hold the door. They don't always say thank you, but they always hold the door for somebody. And that simple gesture of you both are coming in the door, you both, you don't know what energy force that people are coming from, that will help lighten their load and help shift their energy to recognize, hey, that person opened the door. Now it'd be nice if you said thank you, because then that also gives them the reciprocal exchange back. Encourage, they definitely do, Leslie. I don't know, something about Wawa. I'm like, okay, we all ingrained to have open the door and share stuff. I call it Club Wawa because it's always, no matter what time of day, they really are doing well. Encourage someone with a compliment. Again, you never know what space people are in. So give them a compliment so that they, it could be something simple. I like your hair. The shirt you have on is nice. The jewelry you have on complements your outfit well. Or, nice suit. I don't want this to be one gender focused and not the other. Nice suit. I love when you shared whatever in your presentation, or I love how you communicated with your sister or your sibling about that issue that was very, very difficult. You did remarkably well. Like, give a compliment to people so that they can know what they're doing right. When we only focus and get rah-rah for the negative, then we encourage the rah-rah to keep happening. If we don't want rah-rah to keep happening, and I mean like arguments, challenges, things that are negative, then we need to shift over in our narrative to what's going to work. So what else? At the drive-thru or toll, one of the gestures you could do is pay for the person behind you. That wouldn't hurt. That would definitely be a nice gesture sometimes, especially when you're on a toll road, or if you're in the train station and somebody is trying to buy their ticket and they're like, digging in their pockets, whatever, looking for their token or whatever. Just share, because you never know how that could really lighten the load for someone. Leslie, you still in my Club Wawa? It's okay. A couple other people have stole it too. So I shared this a little bit earlier, but one of the things to kind of change the sarcastic tone in your life and in your interactions is send a thank you note to people at least 2 times a day. Now, I know we use technology, and people will say they'll send an email. You can use technology and get the cute little thank you cards and send those electronically. You can, I wish I had my Easy Pass. I actually miss my Easy Pass. However, sometimes you could go through the regular thing, stop, pay for the person behind you, and then you keep on cruising through. But I love Easy Pass. But send a thank you note to people either through an email, I don't know, maybe they have apps on your phone that you can send it through a text message. But then also just find other ways that you can say thank you to people at least twice a day. Because that thank you, again, not only acknowledges the person for something that they did well, but it creates a different energy pattern within your relationship. You begin to let people know how it is that you appreciate them. So in traffic, let someone go first. Even when it's, it seems like it's going to be the worst thing ever. Let somebody go first, and don't feel impacted by what choices they make once they get in front of you. But definitely let them go first. This one is probably difficult. And this is probably where some of the sarcastic comments come from. Now, this is on the positive, but this is probably where some of the sarcastic comments come from when people feel disadvantaged. So I'm going to say it, and then we'll come back. Listen. Really listen to others when they speak. How often is that a challenge? I think that is equally as a challenge as giving a compliment to somebody, because we listen to hear people, to prepare our response, but do we listen to hear what people are actually saying so that we can know how it is they value us, how it is that they're pouring into us, how it is that they choose to help us in some particular way. So listen, really, really listen to what people are saying. Say please and thank you more. Send flowers to a friend. I haven't done that in a while, but I have done that. Friends sometimes call. Friends sometimes show you different things that they may be going through, and they may use social media. You know your friends, you know the people who you care about. If you haven't talked to them in a while, there's always coupons that you could come up with between Groupon, Living Social, or just calling a florist in general. If you need to cut corners, but you could send, instead of a thank you note, send some flowers. Create how you save your money, whatever. Send some flowers to people. If you know their favorite flower, if you know that in the workplace that someone, could use a pick-me-up, stop at Club Wawa or stop at the grocery store or anywhere, along your travels, and just maybe put their favorite candy in front of them, or a flower or some kind of token to let them know that you're thinking of them. But it's just a nice token. Now, candy, depending on, what they may be working on. But, you know what I'm saying, just the gist of it. Appreciate the often unappreciated. And depending on the person's profession, you may know that they do hard work. They go into the trenches every single day. But even if there's someone who doesn't go into the trenches every single day, anybody who may be feeling unappreciated for all of the valuable things that they do, if they're the ones that always do the grocery shopping, they do the grocery shopping, they make the list, they bring up all the bags in the house, and they put it away, maybe you can help getting the bags, at least. Or maybe if they went shopping, you put it away, you can create that from a conversation of how we can equally share this. But until you do that, you can show them that you appreciate them by just sharing that load. So if you're appreciating someone who's unappreciative, if you're at a restaurant or even in a drive-thru, let them know that you appreciate them. Especially people who are in customer service, like the waitress, the drive-thru. You gotta let them know that you are thankful for them. Because if they were not there providing that service, then how would you get your extra Dunkin' Donut swirl, however it is that you order it? Or how would you get your Wendy's chili? Or how would you, I wish Wawa had drive-through, but that might be too complicated. That might come onto the too complicated list. But the people who are in the customer service, let them know that you truly appreciate them, because their job is not easy. They're coming in contact with so many people that are definitely utilizing the sarcastic tongue in a multiple different ways and maybe condescending, but you never know how you could build someone up. It makes me think about a time a girlfriend and I went out to eat, and the server was so on point but so youthful. And you could tell that although she was youthful and so on point and providing us good service, that the weight of the world was on her shoulders. And so the friend of mine and myself, we decided to just ask her to come over and tell her how thankful we were for her A1 service and that we can see how beautiful she was. We asked her kind of what some of her goals that she was working for, which is a little extra, but is who me and this person particularly are. And not knowing, she was struggling with so much. It wasn't our intention to make her cry, but she was so appreciative that someone took a moment to just acknowledge her, because she was going through the motions of what her job entails and really, really not focusing on all the stressors that she had as far as what was motivating her in that moment. So take a moment and take heed to how it is that you can encourage or appreciate the unappreciated. Leave random notes of kindness in random places for someone to find or stumble across. And inside that note, give them something encouraging. Notes like "you matter" or "you are loved." If they just stumble across that at a certain point throughout their day, you have encouraged them. And so much of the time that it took you to write the note, seal it up, maybe depending on the relationship, put some smell goods in there, and definitely play a part in giving them that affirmation. So I see the responses of the active listening, and it's good, a good thing to listen. A lot of times we really don't listen. And usually if you think about, if you play back your tapes of some of your interactions with people, a lot of the sarcastic comments that you got were at a time that you may not have been listening, which can make someone frustrated, which can make someone dwell, and make someone feel as though they're being harassed and bullied, which we talked about. Am I a bully? Oh my gosh, the narratives. We don't think about that. We think about how we can, get one off, or how we could be in control of a situation. But being in control of the situation does not necessarily mean that you're not being harmful, causing emotional discontent or emotional disorganization or challenges for someone to receive what it is that you have to give. So that active listening is so important. Even if you have to put somebody on pause and say, hey, I really want to listen to what you have to say, but can I have 10 minutes to finish this particular thought, or 2 minutes, finish this particular thought, this particular task, and then I'm all yours. If they can balance and give you that, then again, you would decrease the opportunities of someone feeling like they had to put on this defensive mechanism when interacting with you to have just a general conversation. So let's see. I had notes on the back of my paper too. Let's see. So like talking about the psychology of sarcasm. So it's like the lowest form of wit. The psychology is that it's often difficult to bear, like whatever somebody is dealing with. And you think that you're being humorous, often intended as a joke, and it may be funny, but it solely relies on putting someone down for the gain of making someone else feel or look as small as a result. So you got to think about your use of sarcasm and the use of the impact of the comment in which you're choosing to use. So think about that. You draw attention to something that everybody else will now focus on. So if you notice something that's like a tick with somebody, or something that they constantly do, that maybe they were trying to put a mask on it and not have it as a highlight, but now that you put it on front and center, now you've made them feel uncomfortable, and their self-esteem may be targeted by that. So again, how people cope with different things that may have been we took light before, you have to be mindful of how you're drawing attention to certain things, and how it's an exaggeration of something that's usually of ill intentions, and it's a mockery. So if in it being a mockery, how is it that you're gaining, or how is it that you really are having a fruitful experience and a fruitful engagement when your intentions come from an unintentional use of your tongue to bring someone else down? So the challenge we had in the beginning of this conversation was to think about how often have you given someone else a compliment that you care about, or to a complete stranger. And yes, it's the lowest form of wit, Leslie. And Ms. Lourdes, you got, you know what? Sarcasm, it's almost like when we got to a certain age and was able to use sarcasm, it was like, oh my God, I got sarcasm down. I could put it in the right place in the conversation. I'm building my toolkit to have grown-up conversations. But in today's world, sarcasm coupled with emotional challenges and nuggets that we have in life, coupled with, it may be bullying, it may be like just the brain's defensive mechanisms towards like just something that they don't feel comfortable with. You got to be mindful, unfortunately, and kind of coddle how it is that you work with other, how it is that you work with yourself, and how you honor the conversations with other people. So if you realize that it occurs, maybe whatever you measure as too much in your life, because I don't want to give a qualifying number because everybody's threshold is different. Sometimes it does take that personal checking yourself, saying, okay, what is it that I could do different? How could I have responded to this person differently? And you may be able to do inventory and go back to some of those people who you may have said some things maybe in the last 24 to 48 hours and give them a compliment. Maybe an apology, but I'm more so focused on the compliment. They received your energy, no matter how sarcastic, no matter how negative, and they just kept on moving. Give them a compliment as well as show them an act of appreciation of what it is that you're going to do differently. And if that's a thank you note, if that's a Wawa gift card, I'm endorsing Wawa tonight. I don't know why. Maybe because that's where I'm thinking of having my evening snack. But you have to be mindful of how heavy your heart is, and be mindful of how it is that you play with different things. So looking at some of the comments, let's see. Leslie said you had that happen once, and the lady in the playground was deep. Good from you and good for the other person. I think that what I think you're responding to is the example I gave of the waitress and how we stopped her. You just never know how people receive it. And definitely, the way that you choose to work on something is always available through these mental wellness nuggets and times that I'm able to jump on to share that consultation, even if it's just a mental health check-in. Mental health check-ins are available. Like, they don't have to look like counseling. We can sit at the conference table. We can sit at the restaurant and have coffee. Whatever it is that's going to make you feel comfortable, but have a check-in to see if all of the things that anchor you in your life are working out well. And if sarcasm comes up that it's something that you really need to figure out, okay, where does it come from? What is it masking? What goals am I achieving or not achieving that creates the need for being sarcastic even more? Then you can utilize the fact that you participated in this video and utilize a 15% off your initial consultation throughout June 30th for that counseling consultation of, okay, am I being sarcastic? I'm trying to think of some of the other topics that we talked about throughout the month with the invoice of your personal time. There's so many things that we've covered. So if there's things that as you go back through and you do your personal reflection, feel free to reach out to myself at Butterfly Love. So are there any thoughts or comments or questions, you all let me go on for a full, I know we talked about cuffing season 2. And yes, we definitely talked about cuffing season and the imbalance of relationships that come from the perception of what a relationship looks like when it's cuffing season versus when it's not cuffing season. We talked about suicide and what that looks like and what some of those characteristics are, because it's amazing that it's so much mental health that happens in our day-to-day life, yet because people don't like the word mental, people don't like the word mental health, people don't like the word trauma, people don't like the word therapy. So all of these words, and they have what matches it, are usually the things that block them from having that courageous conversation. They'd rather walk around with the ill intentions of their heart and the ill intentions of their mind and stay in prison versus becoming free from utilizing the resources that are available to them. So, just have that in mind as, we wrap up this month's series of Let's Chat Awareness. And, I'm always available even beyond June 30th because I don't believe that Butterfly Love is going anywhere. We have more metamorphosis and cocoon moments to create and develop for you and for ourselves, and global conversations around wellness. So definitely, Leslie, we don't like to think that we need therapy. And, therapy has a bad connotation in some communities of color, but therapy is what is needed in 2017. And it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't have to be even called therapy. It could just be a therapeutic reset. It could be a conversation of wellness. It could be a conversation of the metamorphosis, because of course, if you come in, you're not going to leave out the way that you came in. You're going to shed away some of those cocoon barriers that you have. So growth comes the way that you dictate growth to come. And definitely would want you to think about and be more mindful as opposed to dismissive of how mental health creeps in to our day-to-day experience. So before we wrap up, are there any thoughts, comments, questions that you may have? Again, want to give a heartfelt thanks to all those who have served and to be acknowledged by this Memorial Day holiday. I believe I saw that my sister Rafia shared the video. I want to give her thanks and shout out, as always, ensuring that the platform is known. So, thoughts and comments? I want to thank you guys for joining this evening for sure on this holiday Monday as we prepare to jump back in and get into our week. The end of that's a great conversation. You are welcome, Reese. So the question is, how do we recognize sarcasm in emails? When it's when it's someone who you know how it is that they talk. And in fact that you know how it is that they talk, you can recognize the sarcasm from the request that it is to the request that's being made. So if you realize that it's becoming combative, if you realize that it's becoming like that the person has to have the last word, or they're trying to have control over a situation, and control over a situation is not necessary. When you notice for yourself that in reading it, and if you're on the phone, that your energy is changing where you're becoming upset, you got control over how much energy you allow somebody to pull from you. So if you choose to continue to engage back and forth in an email after you've acknowledged that it's a power control situation where the person has to have the last word, feels like everything that you offer as a gift to resolve conflict is something that's negative. If someone is on the phone and they're trying to drain and keep the conversation going, but they don't want to resolve it, they just want to stay in a negative place, You choose how you stay on that phone. And if you have to end the phone call and someone else is ranting and raving, again, back to that rah-rah mode, you can say, you know what, apparently this is not a good time for us to have this conversation. But when you calm down, I welcome the opportunity, but it has to be when you calm down. So I don't want you to feel that I'm hanging up on you. However, I am protecting myself and I'm ending this call at this particular time. So when you feel calm, you can give me a call back. You have given them full disclosure as far as what your positioning is. It's not like back in the day we could just slam the phone down and then unplug it out the wall, because we don't have that technology that much anymore. But you definitely you've given them the opportunity to calm down and have the conversation. But now that they've gotten you, where your anxiety, your heart is racing, your palms are warm, your mind is like, ooh wee, into a whole nother space that it was when it wasn't how you started the conversation. You have control. You have to put the posted up note then to say self-care for me, my mental health invoice as far as how I regulate my time, and right now is not the time or place for me to engage in this conversation. So those would be the ways that I would acknowledge sarcasm in an email and acknowledge it in an interaction to have more self-care for myself. So when we've been doing the conversations on Monday and Thursday, but because May ends on Wednesday, we actually will be having another conversation about something really, really near and dear, which is grief. And because I've gotten some emails, and some, inquiries just about grief, as well as some grief about it being the last conversation for this segment in this series, I felt like it was great to talk about like the various ways that grief impact us, how it shows up in our life, as well as when it is that we need to seek out counseling. So I thank you guys for joining the conversation. I thank you definitely for your feedback and your engagement. Feel free to share this video. Feel free to reach out to me on my business page, Butterfly Love Consultations, or by my email, mary@butterflylovellc.com, or direct dial at 267-971-6203. I always welcome the opportunity to serve you and take you through your metamorphosis of a butterfly. Take care and travel safely. Talk to you all soon. Thanks again for chatting.